Greetings, this is Chris Ruby, the Nostalgic Catholic, with another Isaac Asimov short story. This one is contained in the August 1959 issue of Fantasy and Science Fiction. So, as is so typical for this, although there's a brief mention in the table of contents, let's see here, you see Obituary, Isaac Asimov, page 103. But other than a small blurb, there's really nothing else. As usual for this magazine, it's not on the cover, and there's no other artwork associated with the story. Furthermore, other than the blurb, which I'm about to read here, there doesn't seem to be any discernible textual difference that I can find. So, let's just read the blurb here. Isaac Asimov's recent first straight mystery novel, The Double Dealers? Avon, 35 cents. It's supposed to be The Death Dealers. I've reviewed that already. Was not a completely new adventure for him. The good doctor has dealt with crime effectively and often in both long and short science fiction works, as he does in the following tale of a man with a Tom Sawyerish ambition and a negative wife. So, this is told all from the standpoint of the wife. So, as a husband, she calls Lancelot. I don't know why that name is chosen. She's quite saying that the names have been changed to protect the guilty, etc. Okay. So, her husband, Lancelot, seems to be having trouble achieving any fame. But he's kind of found out that oftentimes people get their praises sung in obituaries to a degree that they never have in life, and he at least wishes he could see that. So, that said, turns out he's developed some way to pull something from the future. I'm not sure what the parameters of this are. It seems to be a few days. I don't know if it could be more or less, or how much, if so, but apparently a few days in the future. And he does it with a mouse, and in a big metal box. The metal box comes back indetectable, sitting right there alongside the original, molecule for molecule. They appear to be absolutely identical. The mouse is also identical, right down to being still warm and fuzzy, but it's dead. For some reason, living organisms never make it back to the past. The original mouse, however, in the first crucible that it was being copied, as it were, by being basically its future self being yanked back to the time, is perfectly alive and well. And in fact, once the time comes along, the other box and the dead body of the mouse just goes, disappears, and now he's got his original, still fine. So, now he wants to do this on himself, so that he can be dead, and they can all write his obituary. And then, and the wife, well, he's been kind of unpleasant to her and unsupportive. And I think he kind of makes a big mistake. So, he actually goes so far as to tell that, if you don't, he's been this failure. He's had these close calls where he came up with probably some good ideas, but somebody else out there with the same good ideas would always beat him to the punch, or something wouldn't work out. It was just, one of those close brushes with fame that never quite got there. So, she's on. Lancelot, I said, something always goes wrong. Not this time. But you always say not this time, and yet something always. He's white with rage. So, only one thing can go wrong, and that is you. If you give it away, if you don't play your part perfectly, if you don't follow the instructions exactly, he seemed to cast about for some punishment. I'll kill you. Wow, nothing about a reward like, if this works, we'll take some money and we'll take a trip to Paris and have some nice time together. Something like that. No. So he goes through with this thing. He explains exactly what he wants her to do. Basically, you just pull a switch and then act like he's dead and decide you want to keep his body around for a few days. So the assistants he had, who were sent on vacation but will doubtless arrive shortly to, show their respect to the dead before he gets taken away and buried, presumably. So, in fact, she actually ventures that I like a deal like this. I said, Lancelot, when this is all over and you are famous, really famous, then after that, surely you can retire. We can go back to the city and live quietly. And now, does he say that's a good idea? That's a really nice thing. Is he at least lie and dangle this prospect in front of her? He just, nah, you are an imbecile. Don't you see that once I am recognized, I must continue. Young men will flock to me. This laboratory will become a great institution of temporal investigation. I'll become a legend in my lifetime. I will pile my greatness so high that no one afterward will ever be able to be anything but an intellectual dwarf compared to me. He raised himself on tiptoes, eyes shining as though he already saw the pedestal on which he would be raised. But from her standpoint, that was her last hope of any personal shreds of happiness. So, problem with playing with what you're dead is, well, I won't spoil it. So, but it's a fun little story, and other than this bare ability to pull someone out of some several days in the future or whatever periods of time are possible, there is really no science fiction aspect. Well, the guy's supposed to be a scientist. And oh, by the way, that mention of the double dealers is the death dealers actually, as Avon published the book. Remember, this is 1959, so it hasn't yet been republished with the preferred title. Which has escaped me at the moment. But anyway, the Death Dealers gets retitled. A Whiff of Death, that's it. So, hasn't yet come out under the other title anyway. It's still just the little cheapy Avon paperback, which is different from the reissue. So, that said, namely, somebody dies inhaling cyanide gas. Well, this guy makes it look like the dead body died of inhaling or being around cyanide. Boy, what a clumsy person. What a silly way to die. He gets to read his own obituaries at least, and he's enjoying those. And he's, oh, here, listen to this. I read that already. But it's so great. Wow. This and that and this and that. Well, at least he got to see what his own obituaries would look like. We can get that far. I won't go any further because that would spoil it, but he's supposed to be a scientist. And he does this supposedly with this time thing, with some scientific process. But that's it. Anyway, that's the story. Not much to it, but it's a fun little, I wouldn't even call it a mystery. It's more like a murder story. And that's it. Thanks for listening.